Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is Jennifer Phillips Russo, Viticulture Extension Specialist for the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program, part of Cornell Cooperative Extension, and you are listening to Between the Vines. This podcast is brought to you by both Penn State University and Cornell University, and it has been a hot minute since we have had a podcast. Apologize for the delay. It has been a crazy season this year, and we're probably going to discuss all of that soup to nuts with my very frequent special guest, Dr. Terry Bates, who is the director here at the Cornell Lake Erie Research and Extension Center. Hi, Terry.
Hello.
So how are you in this harvest?
Yeah, great. Probably like everybody else, at least this side of Ripley, tired of driving in circles all day long just to fill up a load. But
You should probably give a little content to that, is that it is September, the end of September 2024, and our region experienced a horrific frost in April of 2024. Terry and I did a lot of work talking with legislatures and trying to get a disaster declaration in this region, which we were very successful at. And Terry did a lot of crunching of the numbers on that and dealing with legislation. So I appreciate that.
yeah, so bottom line on this farm is, we usually run 8 to 10 tons per acre, and we're running 1 to 2 tons per acre this year.
Wow.
So just takes a lot. We still have to cover the ground, so it takes a longer time to fill up that truckload of grapes.
To put it in perspective, to do one truckload of grapes, many of my growers have been contacting me. We've had conversations about this. It is taking 5 hours to do one load, where I have another grower who is not affected by the frost, and he was taking 7 loads in 4 hours. So you are just driving and driving to find grapes somewhere to fill a load.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's really not. And you know what? When we're doing the Verasion to harvest, and I am not by any means making light of anyone's situation, it's just silence. What do you say? How do you help that person who is doing it? The only thing I can say is, okay, so we're building vine size for next
Yes.
year.
Okay. So yeah, I was about to say, how are we gonna make something out of it? So what are the positives out of all of this? Is that we have a very low crop load, and that is giving the vines, a chance to recover from years of, heavy cropping and build some vine size back up.
Which I am seeing just driving past some Concord vineyards that are technically getting harvested right now. And I still see baby leaves growing off of the tips of those canes. They're still growing in some of where normally that growth has stopped.
Right. Yeah. So we go back to our age-old lesson about that water and nutrient availability and uptake impacts vine size directly, and then crop load through carbon assimilation and partitioning affects vine size kind of indirectly. So you work with those things together, and so far we got a little dry during the summer, but otherwise, we've had good water and nutrient availability all season, and then we've had a low crop, so low, leaf area to fruit weight ratio, and all that's leading towards being able to build vine size. So you probably can go from, if you have 1.5 pound vines, you probably could have 2.5 pound vines or 3 pound vines going into next year, which just indicates that you've increased your crop potential for next year, which is a good thing.
That is a very good thing. And that also brings up another question that I've had growers, rightfully so, when you get hit with a disaster like that, and you know that there's probably going to be a cash flow problem somewhere. You have to give and take. There are trade-offs to operations. And there are a couple things that I've discussed with growers. One is that people would dial back on their spray programs this year. Why spray vines that aren't going to have any fruit on them? And I cautioned that might not be the best strategy, simply because you need to keep those vines healthy moving into the next season to set them up to build that really nice root base. And I'm noticing that disease is creeping in on some of the vines around the belt. Have you noticed the same?
No. If there is some disease, if you take that kind of 10,000 foot look over the vineyards, and very full canopies, a lot of green out there still. You will notice that the young shoots are still growing a little bit, so you'll see some a little yellow out on the ends. So some people worry about having a decrease in bud cold hardiness if you stimulate growth late in the season. And we haven't seen that with Concord. So with Concord, as those shoots grow throughout the season and then the nodes become lignified, like they reach their whatever, the wood reaches its maximum maturity. And if you stimulate growth at the end of the season, it really doesn't change the cold hardiness of those buds that are already there. I don't think that's true for all grape varieties. I think some of the European grape varieties, people always comment about Cabernet Sauvignon. If you stimulate growth late in the season, that you could decrease wood hardiness. But that doesn't seem to be the case for Concord that's adapted to Eastern North America.
I think we really are getting set up for a great year next year with everything that is.
Yeah, but knock on wood, we got to not have another frost. I mean, we just look at, so you go to the areas in Pennsylvania unaffected by the frost, and they have pretty high tonnage this year. So, I mean, we already had the potential for a pretty good crop this season, and now with an increase in vine size, with a year's rest, that's only going to increase. So.
Okay, so this is another conversation that we had with a grower. Perfect segue to discuss it is now your fertility for next year. And I know a lot of people are thinking, oh my gosh, let me get through harvest this year. But this is going to play a factor or a role in it because some people are saying, so we didn't have any fruit this year. The vines have rested. I don't need to do a fertility program next year.
Yeah. So every vineyard is different. Right. And I think growers have to assess their vineyard. So there's first having a nutrient management plan based on vine size, vegetative growth, and then nutrient management plan based on what your crop size is. And so even though we're saying there's an increase in vine size because we've had a low crop size this year, I mean, I still see parts of the vineyard, even on this farm, I see parts of the vineyard where the vine size isn't where I want it to be. I want it to be like 2.5 to 3 pounds of dormant cane pruning weight per vine. And I know even on this farm that we're still not there to that 2.5, 3 pound vine. There's definitely places on the farm where I'm at 3 or 4 pound vines now. And so again, looking at vegetative growth, those 3 and 4 pound vines, I can say, yep, I can totally dial back on my nutrition. They are growing really well. I don't need any more. But there's still areas of this farm that could use more. And I've just riding on the harvester last week, I've seen magnesium deficiency. I've seen potassium deficiency on this farm in certain small pockets. So there are areas that still need that extra fertility program. But having said that, because I know it's on everybody's mind, right? Low crop potential this year, plenty of water and nutrients. I'm growing a big vine, so I'm growing a bigger root system. The capacity of the vine is larger. So the capacity for that vine to take up water and nutrients is improved. The capacity to hold a larger crop has improved. So you may say, if my vine size is big enough, I can dial back on fertility. And what the next thing I think you need to be concerned about is fertilizing for next year's crop. So as I think about, like, am I going to put down fertilizer in and around the bloom time next year, is if I have 3 pound vines, they're getting plenty of nitrogen and potassium, I probably could dial back on that early season stuff, but can that root system keep up with an 11 ton or 10 ton per acre crop next year? So you're kind of playing that, what kind of crop potential am I setting for next year? Or if I set a high crop potential, am I going to thin it back to a particular level? Which I know most of the growers are out there going, heck no.
Yeah, what? Not after last year.
Not after this year. I need some money. So if I'm that grower who's saying, okay, I had a low crop this year, next year I'm going to set a 10 to 11 ton per acre crop, and I want to ripen that, I mean, you have to make sure that the nutrients are there for the vine to be able to keep up with that crop potential, or you're just going to find yourself back in the same situation that your vine size is going to drop dramatically, especially if you have potassium deficiency. I always say nothing drops vine size faster than potassium deficiency in Concord vineyards. Once you start to see that black leaf, you're going from a 3-pound vine to a 1-pound vine, like
Right.
that. And then you've killed your crop potential for the following year. So that's the whole perennial cropping system. So I personally will probably, for our kind of general blocks, I will dial back on my nutrient program for next year. Like I'll say, yep, I'm not going to put down as much nitrogen and as much potassium as long as everything else looks pretty good. But I will be prepared that if we set a big crop, that I might want to come in and supplement with something that
At the
will,
time.
yeah, that will be able to support that big crop that's developing in the middle of the season.
Now, this could be different if you are a wine grape grower and you are on a rootstock and you have a low cropping level anyway, because your vine size, if you got hit this year, is probably buffered up.
Yes. I always say there's the differences in the industries. So if I'm growing vinifera or hybrid on an aggressive rootstock and keeping the crop potential low, I'm perennially in a system where I'm kind of de-stressing the vines, right? I'm getting plenty of water and nutrients. I'm keeping the crop low. So if anything, I'm usually fighting excessive vegetative growth and my canopies are out of control, and then everyone starts talking about shoot positioning and leaf pulling and canopy division and increasing internal canopy shading. And I'm like, well, we just don't even worry about that in Concord because we, grow them on their own roots and we don't use supplemental irrigation, and then we crop them as heavy as possible. So we're always driving the vine size down. So we need, good floor management and good water or good nutrient programs to make sure that the vines are getting what they need to be able to ripen that big crop. So, yeah, I have always said, I think we have it all backwards. I think Concord should be on an aggressive rootstock so that it gets plenty of water and nutrients to support big crops. And some of our wine grapes need to be on more devigorating rootstocks like Riparia Gloire to keep those canopies under control and be able to have good fruit exposure and all those other wonderful things.
I agree. Or
come
total
along
floor.
with, yeah.
So as you were talking, I'm sitting here in my head going, I know exactly where we could segue with this one. As you're driving around in circles, there is a tool available to help you sort of record that variation that you're seeing in your vine size and possibly help you be more efficient in how you apply your amendments next season. If you want to talk a little about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I mean, my biggest thing is I just have a yield monitor on our harvester, and that really helps. So between taking canopy reflectance NDVI throughout the season, and especially we know that late season NDVI relates really well with vine size when we go to measure it in the winter. So kind of like having that spatial information with my yield information, kind of have an idea of where my vines are overcropped and undercropped in this year, so I can do something for it next year. But if I'm just riding around in the harvester and I see some nutrient deficiencies, or I see where like the vine size isn't that big, or I smell a lot of berry moth damage.
So, I have, not just you.
Yeah, you can use the My EV data collector. So have, as you're driving around, have your cell phone out with a data collector on there, and maybe have a couple different categories of, do I see low vine size or potassium deficiency or magnesium deficiency, or I'm seeing a lot of berry moth damage in a particular place. Maybe just have a couple of those things so you can just, hit it with your thumb and kind of, get an idea of scouting while you're working the harvester. But don't look at your phone too much. You'll take out too many posts.
That was, you don't know that by experience now, do you?
This year, I've been really good this year.
Oh, that actually brings me to one more thing that I want to touch on. And this is sort of just a conclusion. Thank you so much for being here and joining us for this quick podcast. I promise that we will try to get on a more regular basis. Now that our team is completely full and everybody's pretty much up to working speed on with Megan and Andrew's got so many great projects in the loop that I want to have him talk to everybody about. But safety Safety, I know a lot of you are just driving around, just as Terry had mentioned, don't look at your phone too much, and you're just looking for grapes and you have that fatigue happening. So just please be a little more cognizant on keeping yourself and your crew safe, and especially the people out on the road. Is there anything that you would like to add before we sign off?
No, we go over that safety thing every time we start a new harvest operation. Dan always says, number one, keep everybody safe. Number two, protect the equipment. And number three, pick as many grapes as you possibly can.
No shaking hands with danger.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you jumping on. This was really quick. I caught him in the hallway and said, would you be willing? And he's always willing. So thank you for sharing your expertise with our growers and for constantly helping with extension. We really appreciate that. Everybody stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have one out in the next couple of weeks. I know that Megan, Luke, and I are heading down to Southeast PA to start collecting some initial data on harvesters and spotted lanternfly. So hopefully we can have some updates or at least give you what our experience was down there on the next one, and stay safe out there, everyone.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Mhm.